Liz Lamping here, PHRA's Executive Director. Welcome to P4, People, Purpose, Passion, Pittsburgh. P4 is brought to you by our members and sponsors, Latitude and the University of Pittsburgh Executive MBA Programs and Center for Executive Education. We appreciate their support, and we will hear from them throughout the podcast, beginning with the University of Pittsburgh Executive MBA Programs and Center for Executive Education.
Greetings, colleagues and friends. Welcome to the next installment of the PHRA P4 podcast, People, Purpose, Passion in Pittsburgh. Once again, my name is Ron Kubitz, and I'm the Director of Recruiting at St. Barnabas Health System, and I'm honored to be, again, hosting the podcast today. Hopefully you've viewed some of the earlier podcasts, and you know that our focus early in 2024 is to highlight our great team of board of directors, that we have here at the PHRA. So in our quest to enable you to really get to know our board better, honored today to have the pleasure of talking with two of our board of directors, Sandy Mervosh and Dan Cubarney, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years and working with on the PHRA. They both do an excellent job for us in their roles as volunteers. So I'm very excited to get to know them better today and let you get to know them a lot better as well, too. So again, we're going to get to know better today Dan Cubarney, Sandy Mervosh. Both of you, welcome to the podcast today.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Ron. Happy to be here.
It is our pleasure, our pleasure. So let's get started. And what we like to do, like I said, is get to know you a little bit better. So we'll start with Sandy. Sandy, if you can just maybe spend couple of minutes talking about who you are, both from the professional aspect and maybe a couple little personal tidbits so we can get to know you better as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Just really happy to be here and share with everyone who I am so I can get to know them better. And of course, I'm always open to communications with anyone that's interested in PHRA or a member of PHRA. So I'm Sandy Mervosh. I've been involved with PHRA for quite some time now. So some personal information, I'm married. We're going to celebrate 44 years this year. So yeah, you have to actually, when you start getting into those numbers, you have to actually stop and think for a minute. We have one child who is an adult, does not live in Pennsylvania. We're extremely proud of her. You know, if I had to share probably one of the most exciting things I've ever done outside the world of HR, I had the opportunity to hike in Ireland many years ago, and we actually hit a peak where we were above a rainbow. And I really tried to find the image this morning to share with you, and I couldn't, but it was so exciting because we were hiking in the rain. It was miserable. We finally get to the top of this mountain, and we looked down, the rain quit, and there was a rainbow below us. It was probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Professionally, I am an associate professor at Point Park University, and I am the director of the Human Resource Management program. So I teach HR. Prior to that role, however, I was a business owner. I owned a company called Venture Graphics. And when I decided to sell my business and retire is when I went into academics full time. So I think that's sort of important because human resource management for me was actually the business philosophy I used for running my business. So it's very dear and near to my heart. In addition to being an associate professor and a director of the program, I am also the architect of infrastructure for an initiative called Women in Industry, which all that really means is I'm extremely organized. So they decided to give me a fancy title so that I could organize all the initiatives for the event. And I'm also the assessment coordinator. So once again, I'm organized, So every time the university finds something that needs organization, that sort of falls into my lap. So I have my foundation, my educational foundation, though, is actually in psychology, and then with a master's in human resource management and senior certification, both from HRCI and from SHRM. So that's a little bit about me personally and professionally.
Well, thank you. And I know you have a great passion just from working with you, not only at Point Park, but really bringing a lot of young students into the PHRA and really getting involved in a lot of networking events. So I know from that perspective, we certainly appreciate that as well, too. Now, okay, so hiking Ireland above the rainbow. I mean, was there a pot of gold and a leprechaun, too, that you saw?
No, there was not. I have to admit, I was trying to see, like, where is the end of this rainbow? But there actually was not little leprechauns and a pot of gold.
Oh, well, you can't have everything. So,
Right.
okay, well, I appreciate that, Sandy. And let's get to know Dan Cubarney a little bit better. Dan, go for it.
So thanks, Ron, for the intro. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. I don't know why we picked 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, Liz. I think I'm not bushy-tailed and bright-eyed yet, but we'll do the best that we can. For the past 23 years, I've been a resident of Plumboro in the East. I live with my wife of 28 years, and I think Liz has a picture there to share of my better half. And we live in Plum with my children, Jake and Maddie. Thank you very much, Liz. And we have a year and a half, or I'm sorry, going on 3 years now, my mother-in-law has come to live with us, added a new dichotomy in the Cubarney household. But it's a lot of fun because I love my mother-in-law dearly. The little fun fact about myself personally is, and you have a picture there to kind of commemorate it. I've been golfing since I was 12 years old, and took me almost 48 years, but I got my first hole-in-one last spring golfing with my wife. So I had my most important person to witness that hole-in-one. So little fun fact there about me. As far as professionally, I'm a sales manager for the last 15 and a half years at a local company called Justifax Credential Verification. You may know about us. We're a background screening provider that helps employers on a national and international basis. So as a sales manager there, I spend most of my day working with HR professionals like yourself and trying to help them structure their pre-employment screening process, help them hire and retain the best available talent available, and help them achieve their goals. Almost by luck, I started working with Justifax back in 2008 during the mortgage and the banking crisis. I found myself in an undesirable position of having to really change careers that I had 17 and a half years in that industry. And there was an ad for a company that was located less than a mile from my house. And it was for a sales position. So my history was, in sales was consistent there. And here we are almost 16 years later. I'm still with Justifax and enjoy working with the HR community.
Great. And again, not to give a shameless plug, but as a company that I work for, and as also my past company used Justifax, they do an excellent job when it comes to the background checks. And Dan does a great job if you have the fortune to deal with him as your rep as well, too. So now, of course, Dan, as you know, from the PHRA golf event every year, my group typically comes in last place. So you had to rub it in with a picture of you getting a hole-in-one. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I did steal your position as last place last year. So
yeah. Thanks a lot for that. Yeah, thanks a lot for that too. I think I'll be looking at other vendors now. No. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about HR now that we know a little bit more about the both of you. So talk about maybe what you see as some trends in HR that are coming down the road here. So Sandy, we'll start with you from your vast experience, both on the corporate and the business side, as well as now in the education. What are some of the trends that you're seeing HR wise?
Some of the trends, I think we all tend to look at trends from maybe from a application perspective, but two of the trends that really are exciting me because they directly impact my students is that the entire profession of human resource management is now being viewed more positively. We are seeing HR professionals really being involved in the strategic planning and growth of organizations. And, I'm really very thrilled to see that because it's opening up so many avenues for young professionals. So I think it's, for many, many years, HR has been viewed more as just sort of a functional aspect and not really one of the partners. And HR is really now being embraced by corporations as a true business partner. It is HR professionals who are really taking a significant role in enabling organizations to be successful and sustainable. And I think that is just a wonderful trend. I know my students, when I start discussing with them, or I have guest speakers from PHRA, or they go to PHRA events and they see the just wealth of activities and engagement professionals, HR professionals have in organizations, they're amazed with that. So I'm very happy to see that. The other trend I would say is that, and I'm not even quite sure I'm going to phrase this correctly, but I feel the entire industry has come sort of full circle and we're more focused on people. When you look at historically of the development of human resource management, many universities actually even, it started out as a sort of personnel management and it was really just more about payroll and benefits and documentations. And then when they got into the whole people thing, a lot of universities put HR into the psychology department. And so there was this heavy focus in our development. And then it sort of like went a variety of different paths. And I think we're now seeing a lot more people aspects. Once again, people are amazed when they find out how much human resource management professionals are involved with the communities, with DEI and B, with engagement, with really the employee life cycle. And I'm very happy to see that people aspect and that focus, not just within human resources, but within organizations is developing. And I think I think it's a great path that, managers, human resource managers and organizations are taking, that we're focusing on our people because they truly are our biggest asset.
Yeah, and I agree. And I'm glad to hear that also, obviously, from your perspective. And I think a lot of times those two really go hand in hand now that, the HR professionals are getting, if you want to call it, I guess, more of a seat at the table, so to speak. I think that does bring them and get them more involved so they can be more people oriented, get involved in not only internally, but externally, and really get that people aspect, and people can see them more as humans, helpful, and again, somebody that's really more involved in the corporate perspective. So I think a lot of the times those go hand in hand. So great points there. Dan, what are you seeing from your perspective?
I'd say there's two areas that I'm seeing the most impact or change recently as it relates to employers' pre-employment screening process. The first is drug screening. With the expansion of states that are now, allowing medical marijuana, or in some case recreational marijuana, to be legalized, we're seeing a large percentage of our clients who are conducting pre-employment drug screening to drop the THC from the THC panel, rather, from their the drug screening tests. For better or for worse, I'm not sure. When you're looking at white collar and candidates versus blue collar, that might be more manufacturer related, handling heavy equipment. There's a quandary there that I'm not sure how that's going to play out in the long term, from a risk and a reward, point of view for employers. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The second area, and I think this is really driven more so because of the pandemic here in the last few years, believe it or not, you would think that in this day and age, with technology being the way it is, that there would be more of a use of an electronic portal for obtaining the authorization form and disclosure forms that are required to conduct background checks in the U.S. And while we have seen in the last 15 years huge leaps to from a paper process to an electronic process, there are still a large percentage, I'd probably say somewhere in the area of 25% of employers that we deal with, and we're dealing with thousands of employers on a yearly basis, so this is a pretty decent cross section, but still about a quarter of them were using a paper process. And I think the positive thing that came out of the pandemic is folks got moved away from that paper process by need, because they weren't always face to face with these new employees, and it's helped dramatically and opened the eyes to a lot of HR professionals that were used to doing it a certain way, the paper process way, and it is a very easy way to manage the process. Plus, it keeps you compliant. Oftentimes with old paper forms, you're working on outdated forms, so the electronic system allows you to keep current no matter where you're hiring. So those are the two.
Oh yeah, hey, no doubt. I would never want to go back to the paper again. Using the electronic portal system. And your first point was spot on as well too. I know my last company, we took a look at that, and obviously, especially like you said, it was more blue collar. Got rid of the requirements there as far as passing the THC. And then even here now for some of our positions at St. Barnabas, that's not as relevant as it is. Obviously, the clinical, we haven't changed that, but some of the the service oriented type positions. So great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about PHRA. Both of you are not only on the board of directors, but you're very active in committees as well too. So I would ask you, and we'll start with you, Sandy, what value briefly do you receive from being a PHRA member, and how would you recommend other members get more involved?
The PHRA offers so much. I mean, there's not even enough time here today for us to list all the benefits of PHRA membership. For me, particularly, the resources, continual education, enabling me to, keep myself informed, and not just from the formal education process, but sharing ideas with other members of PHRA, being able to talk to Dan about an area that he is, an expert in that may not be my area of expertise. So there's so many resources formally and just through membership that help me to be better at my profession, be better informed, and then share with my students. And the second is just the people that belong to PHRA. So maybe I'm a little biased because I am in the PHRA, but I have never encountered a group of people so willing to step up and help. I have never had an event on campus that I haven't reached out to PHRA and said, would anybody be willing to come and talk to students, be part of this event? And I have always had probably more HR professionals show up for those events than I ever could have dreamed of. So it's just the resources, the type of people that are there. I've never found that anywhere else.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Yeah, we're always eager to volunteer, and no matter what it is, certainly always have a plethora of people willing to go even above and beyond. So, Dan, what would you recommend how members can get more involved in some of the benefits of PHRA?
Sure, thanks, Ron. So, as a non-HR professional, it's always and being a salesperson on top of that, there's always that fine line about not coming in and being that sales guy that no one wants to be around, right? So my initial, reason for joining the PHR was to be active locally in the community that I work with 95% of the day, and more so than anything because I'm the type of person that likes to get in there and meet people. It was more about just getting to know folks, and that's worked out great. But the other thing that's come out of it that really I didn't think about it initially, and in this past, I've been here 15 and a half, probably been with the PHRA about 14 and a half years. The wealth of knowledge that I've learned from the HR professionals that I've become, come to know over the years, has helped me, because as I'm speaking to the VP of HR directors, on a day-to-day basis, I can relate to them stories and ideas that came out of the PHRA and my, interactions with HR professionals at the association from a wide variety of different backgrounds. Because I think HR kind of changes if you're working with a law firm versus your HR with a manufacturing company, and that has helped me tremendously in being able to relate to clients, potential clients, and share ideas and suggestions that have come out of that. So it's there's two sides of that coin that have tremendously helped me, and that's why I encourage folks to get involved.
And that's great. And like I said, I know you're not one to sell, even though you do a great job there at Just Facts. But yeah, I just know that even from the vendor perspective, you've had a lot of benefits. We see you, front and center at the conference and other events, as a vendor and a sponsor, which is greatly appreciated. And I know you obviously get a lot back from that as well, as your company wouldn't do that. So great opportunities, for vendors as well, too. So appreciate that. So as we're going to wrap up here, I have one final question I always like to ask, and we'll get a quick response from both of you. For those that have listened to the other podcasts earlier that I've done, I always would share that if I had to do my life over and could live in a fantasy life, I would be either a stand-up comedian or be a villain in a soap opera. So I'd like to end just, if you could just pick another career or something maybe in a fantasy world that you would do. Sandy, anything else that you would maybe do besides what you're doing now?
I always wanted to be a novelist. I don't have the creativity to be one, but that's my fantasy, is I would be, in a cabin up in the mountains writing these amazing books.
That would be great. Dan, how about yourself? Golfer? No.
So one of my side gig that I've done for the last 12 years is I umpire locally for baseball, softball associations throughout Western PA. And my wife thinks I'm crazy because she's a former athlete, and she knows how officials take it on the chin a lot. But I would love to take that to the next level. I probably don't have the wheels anymore to be running around the baseball field like I do, but that would probably be something I'd enjoy to do on a higher level, like a semi-pro or professional level.
Yeah, that would be fun. Except maybe having to deal with the parents and everybody yelling at you all the time. But
yeah, you have to have bad hearing. If you have bad hearing, you're okay.
There you go. That's a good point. So, well, listen, this has been great. Sandy and Dan, certainly appreciated getting to know more about you. And for those that are on the other end listening, I certainly thank them for their time listening and watching to this PHRA P4 podcast. I hope you have enjoyed, as I did, getting to know Sandy and Dan better. And please feel free to say hi to them next time you see them at a PHRA event, since you get to know them so much better. And we certainly look forward to seeing all of you at future PHRA events. So thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Dan, for your time. And thank you for those that listen.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks.
People do matter. And at the end of the day, we cannot get any work done if we don't have the right people in place. Are your people connected? Latitude is the one-stop shop people connection software platform. Our software workshops and programming facilitate new employee onboarding, manager one-on-ones, stay interviews, mentorship programs, and peer networking to increase retention, engagement, satisfaction, productivity, profitability, and happiness. Imagine a technology that intersects your calendar with LinkedIn, Zoom, Google Docs, and your CRM. Contact Latitude today to schedule a conversation.
The PHRA P4 podcast was created to help build HR leaders through discussions with thought and business leaders on the most critical success factor of any business, its people. If you enjoy an episode, please help us spread the word by subscribing to the podcast and providing us a rating. We would love for you to take a screenshot of the episode, tag PHRA, and share it with your followers. Until next time, thank you